What's up, everybody? Green Tea Gamer, and let's talk about No Man's Sky. I don't think I've ever seen a game with this much hype behind it. I mean, even when it was announced, like way back 3 years ago, this was going to be the game to end all games. People were losing their minds over this game, and it never stopped all the way up until the game's release. And unfortunately, all that hype just turned into what is essentially a glorified survival game. I mean, it's not the game itself. I don't find that interesting. It starts with the off-all gameplay loop. When you first jump into No Man's Sky, you are immediately given tasks. You have to repair your starship. So you have to wander around the planet and you walk really slowly. And you have to wander around your first planet looking for resources to fix your ship. And at first, I was just thinking, oh, that's just going to be, this is just essentially their tutorial mission, just going to show me sort of what the game is and how to explore and yada, yada, yada. But it turns out that type of thing is the entire game, because for whatever reason, the developers decided that it would be fun if everything needed fuel. Your warp engines need fuel, your interplanetary engines need fuel, your takeoff engines need fuel, your Omni tool needs fuel. Everything needs to be constantly refueled. You're always looking for resources. And that's pretty much the only thing I spent doing the entire time I played the game. And I only played for the game for about 5 hours. But that's kind of the other problem, because I only played this infinite game for about 5 hours, and I felt like I'd pretty much seen everything, because the planets are boring. I mean, I don't really know how else to say it. They all feel pretty much the same. The planets themselves, they have the same terrain over the entire planet. There's no variety, and there's really not much difference between the planets. You'll have planets that are really cold, or maybe ones that have acid rain, but that doesn't really affect anything at all. It's just the planets with extreme temperatures, there's really no point of going to them. You just kind of avoid them. I actually once got stuck on one because my takeoff engines were, of course, out of fuel. So I had to just sit in my ship for, I don't know, 5 minutes just waiting for this snowstorm to go by. And, that was like really engaging and stuff, but not really. But unfortunately, this extends to the entire universe in No Man's Sky. Everything just feels kind of lifeless. For instance, the space stations are these huge things out in space, and it looks really cool. And you're like, oh, but there's a bunch of aliens in there. It's like a trading hub for the entire universe. And so you fly in there, and you come into this little docking port that'll hold about 15 ships, and there's never any ships in there. You get out of your ship, you walk up these stairs, and the entire space station consists of one office-sized room with one alien in it. And it just doesn't feel like a big universe at all, despite being, despite having 17 quintillion planets or whatever. But that doesn't matter if there's nothing interesting to do on them. And Hello Games has said that it's going to be updated, but as far as I'm concerned, that's an unacceptable way for AAA development. This is a $60 game with it's a premium price, and you expect the game to be done. Because not too long after the game was released, people figured out pretty quickly that there was a lot of stuff that we were promised that just isn't in the game. I mean, they were showing off sand planets, which presumably don't exist. The multiplayer element just isn't there. Factions don't really mean anything. All the ships feel pretty much the same. Just so much stuff that we were promised just isn't there. It just didn't happen. And I mean, I understand. I mean, this game is huge, and it was like a 20-man team. And I would have been impressed if that would have happened with a 300-man team. And maybe it will be ready in 3 years. But I stopped caring after 5 hours with the game. So even if it is that game that everyone thought it was going to be in 3 years, I doubt anyone's going to care. But for me, even if they do fix all that stuff, the problem is the core gameplay. I mean, if I were to improve No Man's Sky, I would just say you got to start from scratch again, because just playing the game, I mean, it's a first-person shooter, kind of first-person exploration game, but you move agonizingly slowly. The shooting mechanics are awful. I mean, and thankfully you don't do that much, except for the drones that are on every planet, and when you harvest too many resources, they'll come and attack you, which just seems very, I don't know. The game does a very good job of keeping you from doing things you want to do, which seems like a bad thing. And I kind of feel bad hating on this game so much, because I don't think it's a bad game. It's just solidly mediocre. Because on the other hand, it is an impressive piece of tech. I mean, Hello Games have created essentially the biggest game ever made. I mean, 17 quintillion planets. They're all explorable, procedural generation. I mean, it's impressive technology. It's just not an impressive game. And I think No Man's Sky is an interesting study in where we are in hype culture, what we find acceptable for AAA game development, but it won't be remembered for the game itself. It will be remembered for its impact. And essentially, there are a million games on Steam that do the exact same thing that No Man's Sky does. They do the survival, crafty inventory management thing, and they're a dime a dozen. And essentially, No Man's Sky is no different. I really can't recommend it because it's not worth $60, and the game isn't finished. It's not what we were promised, and it's just not fun. So, thanks for watching.